this chapter of Fairy Tail, like, wow, wow. What Makarov said in this chapter truly was impactful in a sense of it stood out because it's exactly what this represents. The end of an era. Fuck that time skip that happened after Tenrojima. That shit, that was just like whatever. This honestly felt like a great setup to a true time skip in Fairy Tail right now. And I'm like, damn, man, Hiro Mashima. The last few chapters have just been out of this world, and then getting a true setup, this honestly felt like, if you look at it, to be honest with you, it resembles and reminds me heavily of the Whitebeard War, with Igneel in a sense being, I guess, Whitebeard in a way of like, you know, the death that we had. And then at the same time now, it was kind of like when they had to go off and train because they knew they weren't strong enough. Now, a couple things, there would have been a little bit more impact had Natsu actually tried in this previous attempt at, you know, Acnologia, actually went up against him and once again got slaughtered so that, you know, he can understand, yeah, I can't fuck with him or whatever. But nonetheless, just the way it was set up, honestly, again, it reminds me of what happened in One Piece right before the time skip, except it was a lot more fast-paced in a sense because it was like we just had that shit and then bam, we seemingly are getting a one-year time skip. Although I don't know if Mashima's going to showcase a time skip and we're going to actually see the slow progression throughout the year or something, but damn. So the chapter starts off with all of Magnolia, the guild, everything is in complete ruins, and this showcases that the threat that they had, and ultimately the build-up for Tartarus, had major impact. I mean, at the end of the day, Loxus was in bed the entirety of the arc ever since his last fight, so while he didn't necessarily die, ultimately impact. I mean, he stood in fucking bed the entire time and only just now woke up in a sense, and while he's still injured at the same time, it's like, god damn, the impact that Tartarus has had is like, Magnolia's done, the guild is done, the guild has disbanded, like, that's impact. And it's crazy that Loxus, you know, for a long time, Loxus has been, that's the dude, that's the big homie, Loxus just like, is up there or whatever, and to hear him say that he feels weak and he needs to get strong. It's like everyone is gonna beast, and I honestly hope that if this is indeed a true time skip, whether we see like, you know, a couple of characters here or there, or however it may be, I want to see some real results this time. Not like the Tenrojima shit. I think honestly Mashima has learned his lessons a lot throughout, you know, Fairy Tail, whatever, ever since those events, because it's like, now it's looking like we might actually get a legit time skip this time. I will say one of the only few things that slightly annoyed me with this chapter was Wendy getting her hair back, because the haircut was symbolic of the change in her and that she's grown up a little bit. So I don't know if that was that the readers just weren't feeling the haircut, or once the time skip happens, she's going to cut it yet again, so it's just temporarily. But that was really one of the only small, very nitpicks that I had regarding the chapters, that Wendy should have just kept the short hair because it was symbolic of her growing as a person and as a character. And then I like how the buildup of that letter that Natsu and Happy had, it was like, you see it in the beginning, it's like, what the fuck is up with this letter? What's going on? You could tell that they're going on a journey. And then later on, the payoff with Lucy and everything, it kind of drags in that whole Nalu stuff as well, you know, Natsu x Lucy. So it's like, he wanted to give her a proper goodbye, opposed to like everyone else. He probably just said, peace, motherfucker. And honestly, the tragic one out of all of this, Gray. Like, when I just saw him mourning his parents' death and everything that happened with Jubia, it was like, just really impactful, honestly. These past few chapters of Fairy Tail have been amazing. And I honestly think that one of the hugest contributions to making this Tartarus arc the defining arc in Fairy Tail, because in my opinion, this is the best arc in Fairy Tail, ultimately was Gray. I think Gray and everything he'd been through with his father, you know, the revisiting memories of Deliora, what happened prior to that with Ultir and seeing her death, or, you know, her turning into an old lady, which in a sense was death, and she probably already passed away as well, and then leading up to this moment, and it was kind of like pushing the pairings as well, because Gray and Juvia, they're kind of hugged up and everything, so who knows, maybe after the time skip, they'll actually be a legit couple. Although I ain't gonna lie, I kind of smirked when he was like putting his face in that bosom. I was like, great, finally, it's about time. Now, the whole thing with Jalal and the Araso and Seis, it looks as though they're gonna once again go in the shadows and kind of, they had that still dark presence to them, especially Jalal, but maybe they're gonna continue being just like a guild that does good things in the shadows, because at the end of the day, they all wanted criminals. But it just kind of made me wonder as well, like, what the fuck happened to them? I honestly think either Mashima couldn't wrap them up into this arc properly, or, yeah, because it was just like, they were all built up and everything, they were all together, and then they never really did anything, so I was kind of like, what the fuck happened, Mashima? Now, the Doran Bolt thing, it's weird, because it was like, so, he faked that he was a Fairy Tail member in the Tenrojima arc, only to later find out that he really wasn't, only to later find out that he really was a member of Fairy Tail, but didn't know it. It was like, mindfuckery of the year, anyone? But it didn't even really matter at this particular point because Doran Bolt at this point basically has nowhere to go because Fairy Tail is gone. They disbanded this chapter, so it was just like whatever. And honestly, the look on Makarov's face, because in a sense, could this be the end? If Fairy Tail had to disband, but you saw Sabretooth was still together, that's not necessarily the end of all guilds. That's just the end of their guild. So I think guilds are going to continue to go, but the almighty Fairy Tail have disbanded, and probably the remainder of the manga is going to be, once again, them having to try and get back what they lost, and that's their home and their foundation, which is Fairy Tail itself. And it's making me wondering, did Lucy actually make it to catch up in time? They've always tried to leave her behind and everything, but did she actually this time make it, or will it be a whole year before we see her again? And if we do get a year time skip, I'm betting Lucy's gonna be boom! Not that she isn't already, but you get what I mean. And then of course the bombshell of them all, where we see at the very end, like, wow, Zeref, fucking Zeref, when he dropped the bombshell, will Natsu be able to overtake me? Or shall I say E.N.D, Aetherus Natsu Drag Neil. So many of us called it, and holy fucking shit, like, the way Mashima did this, it was 10 times better than I would have imagined. I thought this was all going to be in the arc, but he just set this up to be even grander. The whole E.N.D situation, Zeref, Acnologia, everything about it. Like, he honestly just did way better than I expected in this chapter yet again. Just such a fucking awesome chapter. And these past few chapters have just made Fairy Tail go from, like, boom, man. It's like, this is honestly, and I don't give a fuck what anyone says, not the entire series, but these past few chapters honestly make me say, if the manga was always like this, then we could definitely say Fairy Tail greatness. If only it was like this all the time, because, yeah. And after this chapter, we got major things. For starters, seemingly we're going to get a 1 year time skip. The end of Fairy Tail. Magnolia is in ruins. The Fairy Tail Guild is in ruins. It's like, so much. Elfman is probably not going to go back. Jesus, like, yo, this chapter honestly just shook things up in a major way. I did not expect the time skip to come, but in all honesty, again, just really reminds me of 3D2Y. I think it was 3D2Y, was it 2D3Y? Some shit like that, but you get what I mean, the One Piece time skip. Just quickly talking about E.N.D, remember, it was said that 400 years ago, Igneel himself couldn't defeat E.N.D, which would mean that if Natsu himself truly is End, then he's 400 years old himself. Now, we don't know about the other Dragon Slayers, although Gajeel couldn't pass through the gate, but then again, remember, the dragons were in their bellies, so that could have been the reason why they couldn't pass through the gate, and it could only be Natsu that's 400 years, but how the fuck did he make it 400 years? And the scarf, there's definitely some relevance. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the scarf being around his neck was maybe Igneel's sort of magic to keep E.N.D at bay, to keep Natsu there and not E.N.D, you know, taking over. And maybe Natsu himself is just a spell to keep E.N.D in a sense at bay. Maybe Natsu himself is the rebirth of E.N.D, so to speak. And yeah, for this week's chapter, I gotta give it like, I want to say 10, and I honestly feel like it's so amazing, this chapter. But some of the Wendy stuff, a couple different things here or there, I was like, oh, but it was just so good. So 9.5 to a 10. If it was just like me personally fanboying out, I would say 11 out of 10 or whatever. But it was just a great chapter nonetheless, regardless of what. It was just really fucking awesome. And it's like, Hero stepped up, he ate some Wheaties, and I hope he keeps going this path, because this is a great path to be on. Let me know what you guys think, though. How did you feel about this chapter? How did you feel about what was going down? How did you feel about the revelation at the end? Natsu was E.N.D. Again, a lot of us predicted it, but now actually having it, and it's like so many theories that can go with this. And your overall thoughts, a 1 year time skip seemingly incoming for Fairy Tail. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so as well, that'd be amazing. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.